Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Leno Podcast. I'm Lexi Linderman.
I'm Will Horseman.
It's just us two today, as our colleagues are off in San Francisco, cover the Super Bowl for the AP. Awesome stuff for them. You can go to their Twitters and check out what they're doing. But we're here today, fresh off of Matt Campbell presser yesterday and meeting with the whole new staff. But we also have a staff update for you guys, and we're going to touch on all of that. So first off, Noah Pauley leaves Penn State the day after we meet him for the first time, is taking the same role with the Green Bay Packers wide receiver coach. Will, kind of what are your thoughts? Where do you think, how do you think this affects Penn State right now? And yeah, just give me all the thoughts.
Yeah, so I mean, we just met this guy yesterday, and now he's gone. So definitely, I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but at least the 10 minutes I was sitting next to Paulie, he didn't seem like he was about to leave or anything. It wasn't like when D'Anton Lynn was asked about being linked to the Penn State job during that bowl game availability with USC. If he seemed genuine, like he was about to enter or be in the off season with Penn State. So this definitely feels like this might be something that kind of just happened overnight. And I mean, for Penn State, I mean, they're losing a guy who's kind of had a proven track record of being able to develop wide receivers and put them in the NFL. I mean, you saw that with Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel. He got both of them to day 2 draft picks to the Texans. And yeah, so wide receiver, that's been an issue for Penn State. I think a lot of people were thinking that Paulie could kind of fix that and finally be able to develop wide receivers at Penn State. But now Matt Campbell, he's going to need to find a replacement. And I would say, for one thing, it's Matt Campbell, I'd say he does have a good, track record of finding wide receiver coaches. I mean, he obviously found Paulie. Before Paulie, he had Nate Shieldhouse as his wide receiver coach at Iowa State. Obviously, he was interviewed for some NFL head coaching jobs. So there's definitely, I think Campbell, he's proven that he can find some good coaches. So I mean, we'll see what happens here. But yeah, it's still just kind of stunning in a way that this all happened with less than 24 hours.
Yeah, definitely really shocking. I think like you said, this is something that happened overnight, and I think you mentioned how Penn State hasn't had the best success with wide receivers recently, and I think that is definitely a big concern here, where now it's very late in the cycle. Winter workouts start in just a few weeks, and now they need a wide receivers coach, and this is the one position coach where fans are you can't mess this up because we need wide receiver production. And now I think Penn State's very fortunate there isn't a spring transfer portal, because I think obviously a lot of these guys followed Paulie to Iowa State. Kobe Howard, I'm sure, was convinced by Paulie and Campbell to stay here, and now he's gone, and they are going to have a brand new guy coming, and this is Kobe Howard's third wide receiver coach, and he's been here for not even 2 years. So I think it's just definitely very interesting. He is going to reunite with his former product, Christian Watson, who he developed at North Dakota State. So that's an interesting piece of that. I mean, this is a guy who was the 2024 Football Scoop wide receivers coach. This is a proven guy. He literally had interviews for the 49ers offensive coordinator position last offseason. This is a guy that's definitely up and coming. So it's not surprising to see him take the jump to the NFL. I think it's just surprising how it seemed like he was settled in at Penn State, and then all of a sudden he's off to Wisconsin. Just definitely a lot going on there for sure. But we did get to meet with the rest of the new staff yesterday, including Paulie. But I want to touch on a bunch of those other guys, because obviously most of the staff is new besides Terry Smith, Justin Lustig. I will say I was very impressed listening to Taylor Mauser. I think he just sounds very humble and happy to be here in a sense. He talked a lot about his loyalty and devotion for Matt Campbell, and Matt Campbell obviously shares that same loyalty and devotion to Taylor Mauser, considering he made him his offensive coordinator and then trusted him to take the jump to Penn State, which obviously it's not an easy job to be an offensive coordinator in the Big Ten, especially in recent years at Penn State. Obviously, N.A. Kolnicki, Mike Yursich, those experiences didn't really play out as Penn State fans hoped that they would, and now this is a guy who you really want to have a good offense. And so Matt Campbell's putting his trust in this guy. He called him one of the up-and-coming bright talents in college football. And so I thought that Mauser was pretty impressive in this. He was very candid, very open. He also just seems like a nice guy to talk to. He loves golfing, he said. He is excited to get out on the course with some of the Penn State guys who also like golfing, things like that. But Will, what coaches stood out to you in talking to them yesterday, and kind of what did you learn about the new staff?
Yeah, I mean, I think I spent 20 minutes talking, or just being next to Savon Huggins, the running backs coach. I really think that he's a good hire. I mean, Matt Campbell kind of said that Penn State had a grand slam by getting Huggins, but based on like what they've both Huggins and Campbell said, it's like you can tell that they were kind of like made to be like on the same staff because they've both said that like they prioritize like making relationships. And I think Huggins, he said he's a big people person. He wants to get to know the person, and he just really just wants to, besides like beyond like playing football. They said like the first question Campbell asked Huggins was like about his family and all that, and that meant a lot to Huggins, and because he said he was like a big family guy. So I think Huggins, I think he's a great fit on Matt Campbell's staff. Otherwise, Jake Waters, the quarterbacks coach, I think he's a young guy. I mean, he's coming technically because he's coming back to Penn State because like he was a potential like transfer portal recruit in 2012 when he was a standout quarterback at Iowa Western. He ended up transferring to Kansas State instead, but he seems like a bright like up and coming guy. I think that like up and coming like phrase works with a lot of these guys. There's a lot of, I feel like younger coaches on this staff that seems like that could work out well for Matt Campbell. But otherwise, I think all of these hires, for the most part, it's like they're just good like culture fits under Matt Campbell.
Yeah, I definitely want to go back to the culture part a little bit, but I also want to talk about Ryan Clanton, who I spent a little bit of time with yesterday, and he kind of like just like embodies like what I think this staff it really seems like to me. It's just like laid back, but not laid back in a sense where like they're not going to hold the team accountable. Like they're just like laid back, chill dudes. Like Ryan Clanton was asked about his offensive line philosophy, and he literally said that he just wants overall violence. He literally just wants his offensive line to fight to the death in the trenches, and I think that that's really interesting. Especially, I think it's a little bit of a switch up from last year where you could kind of see the offensive line was making just a few mistakes here and there that were just really setting them back. And eventually it all started to kind of click, but it seemed like they were in their heads a little bit about all of that, and that was just kind of a theme for the team obviously last year. But Ryan Clanton even said that. He said watching some of their tape, like I think even some of the talented guys going in the NFL like Zeyda would tell you like they were overanalyzing things. And so Ryan Clanton really just wants to get away from that. And he also was talking about how he's going to be teaching the guys returning like Donko, Cooper Cousins. Like there are a lot of returners on that offensive line that didn't necessarily start but have been young and up and coming, like Malachi Goodman, Owen Alcine, guys like that he's going to have to teach them like entirely new things just because of the way he does things. Like pass pro he was talking about, he does it completely different than they were taught. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that develops. But I thought Clanton just seemed like a very nice, calm guy. And so I thought that was interesting. But I think, like, overall, just looking at the staff, especially the guys that came over from Iowa State, like, everyone is just all about relationships. And a word that Matt Campbell used a lot during his presser yesterday was, like, unification, like, one team. It seems like that is the goal for this Penn State team moving forward. And obviously, that is important when you have 55 new players coming in and then all the players, obviously, that return. Like, you have to somehow make them into one team. And that's obviously a difficult task because there are so many of them. You have so much going on. Like, Matt Campbell has so much on his plate. He's still on the road recruiting. He hasn't had the time to really get in and dig deep with a lot of the guys that are now here. He'll get that chance coming up. Same with the rest of the staff. But it's just, like, really interesting to me. Like, the culture just seems like everyone just seems so bought in to Matt Campbell. I think it's really interesting. Like, Taylor Mauser was saying that if Matt Campbell told him he was going back to Mount Union, Taylor Mauser would have gone with him. Like, Taylor Mauser talked about he originally was working at Little Caesars and was literally just calling every single school, and Matt Campbell was the only one that answered and gave him a shot, and obviously he's worked his way up, and that's been awesome for him. But it's just like that that loyalty is just something that's so interesting to me, especially like Ryan Clanton talks about, like, without hesitation. It's like, oh yeah, like, I think Matt Campbell's the best head coach in the nation. Like, he's always treated me like family. He's always been the same guy, someone I've worked with him. So I just think the culture is really interesting, and I think it was interesting hearing Matt Campbell talk about how important it was to him that all the guys and coaches he brought in understood the history of Penn State and the logo and the team and the history that they're representing. I thought that was really interesting as well. But I also want to touch on the defensive side just a little bit. Well, I know you had to go for an exam before the defensive side, but I'll talk about it a little bit. I talked to D'Anton Lynn for a little bit, and he honestly was a lot quieter than I was not that I was expecting, but he was just pretty quiet overall. Like, obviously Jim Knowles was quiet last year, but Jim Knowles gave pretty long, thoughtful answers, and D'Anton Lynn is a little more, I'd say gave a more short answers, but they were still like thoughtful and kind of just like got to the point quick. And so I thought it was interesting to talk to him. He said he hasn't been back to Lash since 2015. He was there for for Christian Hackenberg's pro day as a member of the Bills. I think he was like a defensive assistant or something. And so he talked about how all the upgrades are crazy. He talked about how he's heard from a bunch of his former teammates since coming back to Penn State. Matt McGloin and him have been texting a lot. The two were roommates for 3 years when they were on the team together. So just interesting to hear from him why he wanted to come back to Penn State, because obviously he was kind of in the mix for the job last year, decided to sign an extension with USC, and then a year later, he's moving cross country. He said his wife's from LA, and he has 3 kids under 3 years old. So it was definitely hard for them to make that decision, but he thinks it's what's best for them, and it seems like he's happy to be back in Happy Valley. I also spent a lot of time talking to Ikaika Malloy, is how you say it, the defensive line coach. This is his first time really working on the East Coast. He's from Hawaii, and he really, he said that he came here for D'Anton Lynn. The two have worked together at UCLA, things like that. But he also talked about Matt Campbell and his philosophy and how he really, liked that. And he said it reminded him of Chris Peterson when he was at Washington. And he also called Chris Peterson the GOAT, so make of that what you will. But he clearly respects Chris Peterson a lot, and he drew similarities between the two. And so I think that's a big reason why he decided to come to Penn State as well. But it's interesting to talk to him. He's a super nice guy. His defensive philosophy, obviously. Defensive line's going to be a lot bigger this year than what Penn State fans are used to. D'Anton Lynn kind of talked about it. Ikaika kind of talked about it. So that was just interesting to me as well. Obviously, we know that's going to be bigger, but it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. So those were just some of the defensive guys. But I also want to talk about kind of what we learned about Rocco Becht, in a sense. We obviously didn't get to talk to him, but a lot of the coaches talked about him. So, I'm just wondering, based on what Matt Campbell said, he talked to Jake Waters, what are your first impressions of Rocco Becht from his coaches?
I mean, I'd say an overall summary of a general consensus. It's he's a tough kind of proven winner. I think someone said I don't know if anyone else in college any quarterback in college football has more wins than Rocco Becht. But I mean, yeah, I think Waters said a lot about just his toughness, he's just a veteran presence in that room, because there's obviously a lot of youth in that room besides the Connor Berry, the Christopher Newport transfer. There you got Alex Mansky, the other Iowa State transfer, and then Peyton Falzone and Case Evans. So there's a lot of youth in that room behind Beck, and so I think the coaching staff they seem to trust him. I mean, he's been the starter at Iowa State the last couple seasons. So, I mean, yeah, it's just a tough guy that they trust.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I heard from everyone was competitive. Matt Campbell talked about it. Matt Campbell said that obviously Rocco Becht had surgery on his non-throwing shoulder this offseason. Matt Campbell said he was playing with a torn labrum in that non-throwing shoulder for the last few weeks of the season. And every Tuesday and Wednesday he was getting shot up with injections, whatever you want to call them. And it was hard for him to even practice, and he still went out every Saturday, competed with his team, did not want to lose ever. It just sounds like he's a guy that doesn't ever want to lose. Taylor Mauser was asked about him, and he kind of talked about he described him as competitive excellence. Talked about how, when they play spike ball in Matt Campbell's backyard, Rocco Becht does not want to lose. Any game that you want to play with Rocco Becht, you need to anticipate that he's going to go until he wins. And he also talked about how the two go golfing together, and Rocco Becht is apparently a cheater at golf. I'm not sure how you cheat at golf, but it sounds like he, will hit a ball into the woods and not take some extra shots, things like that. But so it just seems interesting that Rocco Becht really does not want to lose. And so I think that's going to be interesting, especially because it's his last year of college football. So it's probably, heightened even more. This is his last chance to kind of, make a mark. And like you said, Will, he is I think he is the most wins of any returning quarterback in the FBS. So he is the most veteran guy out there. And it'll be interesting to see, for Penn State, this is their fourth full-time starting quarterback since 2016. And they're only getting 1 year of him, which is kind of different from the precedent before. Obviously, Trace played for a few years, and Sean played for 5, and then Drew started the last 3 years. So it's just a one-and-done year for Rocco Becht. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. But I do want to go back to the culture piece a little bit, Will, and I want to talk about what Campbell was kind of saying about the culture. Is it something that you were expecting to hear from him, or is it like were you expecting so much like what's the word, like look back at like so much like devotion to Penn State in a sense? Like were you expecting like that from him, or were you expecting him to like come in and like try to make something new instead of like thinking about the history of the school?
I mean, I would say that it was like Matt Campbell. It's like yesterday was like the second time he's spoken to the media since he got hired, and I'd say he just continues to prove that he was like the right fit for this job because he just seems to just care so much about culture. And I think it was like Pat Kraft during like the intro presser, he says like, how did we not like find this guy sooner? It's like it's perfect fit or something like that. So it's like, I mean, Matt Campbell, he wants his like coaches, his like staff members to kind of. I would say, I've talking to Huggins, it's like they seem to be like an extension of Campbell himself. Like they all want to like develop that culture, like and curate that culture, and just make sure they're developing these players not only as players but as like young men off the field too. So I mean, I think that's just Campbell like prioritizing culture, like that just speaks to like the like kind of like the man he is. It's like I think he kind of showed that at Iowa State a little bit, and then he also mentioned how he has some ties to the PA area. He mentioned like a bunch of like former Penn State players and Joe Paterno during his like intro press conference. So I mean, yeah, I'd say I do expect it just because I think that's just who he is.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I think like just so much of his presser, like he talked about with the players especially, just like playing for something bigger than themselves. And I honestly just think that's going to be the theme of his whole tenure. It just sounds like it's like, I would say in a sense that it's very similar to what James Franklin had implemented here, where it's all about the relationship. It's all about the players. It's all about, not playing for yourself. It's about playing for the team. But then it also feels different in a sense because everything just feels, I want to say more like lax, but I feel like Franklin was very, everyone knows he's meticulous. Everyone knows he likes, everything done kind of his way. But I think that it's just very different to see just like how the position coaches are just so transparent. At least I got that like impression from them. And also Matt Campbell too. Like someone, I think it was Mark Wogenrich, kind of like asked him about like pretty much the entire roster. And Matt Campbell spent 7 minutes just answering the entire, like going position through position, just, analyzing pretty much every spot on the roster. And so I think that was just super interesting. He's just been super transparent. Obviously, that's something that we kind of got used to with Terry Smith. Terry Smith was very transparent during his tenure as interim head coach. So I think that it's just going to be really interesting moving forward. It'll be interesting to see if it stays that way. But yeah, and so I think that's just Matt Campbell. And so I do think it's going to be interesting. And I think, yeah, I just think, like, I also thought it was interesting that he said that he wants it to be a transformational experience because that's obviously a thing we heard from James Franklin a lot. And so, like I said, there's just, like, a bunch of similarities, but, like, it just feels different. And it's just kind of weird. Like, I haven't, gotten the chance to, like, really put my finger on, like, how this is going to go. But it sounds like, Derek Huger, the general manager, talked to him for a little bit. Like, he wants to have big high school classes every year, kind of like Franklin to, like, not really rely on the portal. So I think it's, like Matt Campbell's a perfect culture fit for Penn State, but I also think, like, his personality is just different from Franklin's, and that's what's going to make it feel different. And so I think that's why he was kind of, like, a really good hire for Penn State. Kind of like you said, Will, he just fits the culture really well. So I think that's just super interesting. But I do want to talk about a few of the not depth chart things he said, but outlook of the roster at least, with the running back position as well. He was kind of directly asked about it with Nick and Katron leaving, talk about a few of those guys. He mentioned obviously James People coming over from Ohio State, and then he talked about how Quinn Martin, he's challenged him to put on about like 20 pounds, I think it was. He wants him to be 220. He was 190, so 30 pounds, sorry. And I just thought that was pretty interesting. So, Will, I just kind of want to ask you, like, what do you think? What did you take away from Campbell's just like kind of deep dive into the roster, including that running back position? And is there anything that you think like unexpected could maybe come, based on what he was saying, if that makes sense?
I mean, yeah, Quinn Martin, he wants him up to 220. I think he said he's at 209 right now, so see what happens there. But otherwise, those two transfers, Carson Hansen and James People, I mean, he kind of mentioned that it's like they're like a good like 1-2 punch for a good like backfield combination for Penn State. I mean, Hansen, he's kind of like that between the tackles, picks up the tough yardage and all that, and then Peoples is kind of more like he can also be tough, but it's like he can also be on the outside and be like that kind of speed threat and pick up like chunk yardage plays, kind of like say like Nick Singleton in a way, and get involved in the passing game and all that. So I think those two transfers they got at running back, that's going to provide like a good duo for Penn State in 2026. But then Quinton Martin, he had over 100 yards in the Pinstripe Bowl, so I think he could be like a kind of interesting player to watch this offseason, especially if he does end up getting to that like 220 mark, and if he keeps his speed, then that he'll become a tough player to tackle in a way. But I mean, yeah, you look at the offensive line. I think Campbell mentioned like Anthony Donko and Cooper Cousins has just mentioned them as like kind of like leaders on the team. So it looks like that'll stay. I think he also like just highlighted obviously on the defensive line and offensive line, just trying to get bigger in the trenches, and kind of like mentioning like Big Ten football. It's physical. It's like gonna have to defend the run, and that's a little bit of a change from like the Big 12. Like Big 12 is a little bit more like passing oriented, or not as physical as the Big Ten. Big Ten run first, like physical, like hard nosed football. So there's that in the way, and then. But I mean, yeah, it's like Campbell. It's like seems like he's like just trying to get players like adjusted to playing in the Big Ten.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's gonna be super important, especially like a lot of the returning players are dealing with the new strength and conditioning staff, things like that. Ryan Clan actually talked about the conditioning staff a little bit and said like they're guys themselves that are like going in every morning and like benching 260. And, like the players see that and are like, oh, like that's cool. Like I like need to do that too, things like that. But I think just like. I think one of the things that stood out to me when Campbell was talking about the roster was he said Alex Tash, he thinks just like he could be one of the greatest linebackers to ever play at Penn State, which is obviously very high praise considering the linebackers that have come through Penn State. Those are some lofty expectations to put on a sophomore, but I do think that was really interesting that in the short amount of time, like that's how he kind of feels about Alex Tash, because obviously Tash played a lot during Terry Smith's 10 years interim head coach, didn't really play that much under Franklin. When I talked to him during the fall, he said that he was put on scout team the week after Oregon, and then like finally worked his way back up. So he's definitely a name to watch moving forward. I don't really anticipate him playing that like a really big role in 2026 just because you have Tony Rojas. And then we also found out that LeVar Arrington is going to be playing in a little bit of a hybrid role. It's what Ikaiko told us. So he is going to be, playing some linebacker, playing some defensive end. We'll see if he cracks, the depth chart, see if he gets any playing time in 2026. Obviously, all this is super far away. But yeah, so we just got, there was just a lot of insight. Like, he literally just went down the floor. So, I can't even remember half the stuff he said. But so it was just really interesting to hear, all that from him. It was interesting to see, in the coming weeks how winter workouts go. And then, obviously, there's going to be spring practice. Then also he talked about the blue-white game. He said they're still trying to iron things out, that there will definitely be something. They're just not 100% sure what yet, but that an announcement should be coming in the next week or so. So, all that, he just touched on all that. I mean, his press conference was 45 minutes long, and a lot of it was spent talking about the last 2 months, which he obviously described as a whirlwind. It's been a whirlwind, I think, for us too. There's just been so much going on. But yeah, it's nice to have the dust kind of settled, and it was nice to hear from them, hear from Campbell and the new coaches, and I think we got some good insight onto just what the inside of the Lash building is going to look and feel like moving forward. So that's all we have for you today. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. For more of our coverage, you can head to psccollegian.com, head to the sports tab, and then click football, and follow us on socials as well. If you want articles curated to your inbox every Friday morning, you can sign up for our newsletter as well. You can find that on our website. But for now, that's all. Thank you guys for watching.